All right, Adam, on Tuesday night, Joel Embiid is going to make his return this season. The Sixers are going to be without Tyrese Maxey, so we're not going to see the Sixers at full strength either. But Embiid is returning. What are you going to be watching for first in Embiid's return?
Well, first of all, just how healthy he is, to see what he looks like. It's, I think, probably underappreciated. We all saw the first week of the season. The Thunder were locked in. The Celtics were locked in. But most teams were a little clunky. It takes like a week to kind of get into the flow. You're now hopping into a league that's 10 games in, 3 weeks in. You're almost certainly going to be out of shape, and just your rhythm is off. So how far behind is he? Can he walk right in and dominate? That's number one. But my big question for the 76ers, and it's my big question for Embiid, and it's a little bit what we just talked about with Luka, but I think it's more extreme for Embiid. We know Embiid can be as dominant as any player in the history of the game. Getting to the foul line, everybody flattening out, doing your thing and shooting the jumper. Maybe you get into the post, you back a guy down, you draw a foul, whatever. That box is checked. We've checked it. We checked it 6 years ago. You can do that. But as I said, when you get to the playoffs, teams now scheme for that. They overload. They force you to go somewhere else. And if you haven't spent the entire season working on what do we do when teams overload? What is my two-man game with Maxey? What's my two-man game with Paul George? What's my three-man game with Maxey and Cody Martin? What is the thing that we do? So teams are overloading this. That sets up for that. That's the thing that I felt like Embiid and the 76ers have never focused on, and I don't know why. And then when you get to the playoffs, they just kind of look like they're stuck in the mud because they haven't built anything other than the Embiid dominant offense. And so for me, I'm not necessarily looking for that on night one, but it's the question I have for the 76ers. Now it's health because they're starting behind the eight ball. But aside from that, it's, are you going to build something that pays off in the end? Or are you going to collect a lot of wins doing one thing that we know every year, if a team shuts that faucet off, there's nothing else for you to go to? That's the big question.
No, it's interesting with Embiid because Maxey is somebody equipped to play in that two-man game style offense you're talking about with intense chemistry. Like if you plug Maxey in Jamal Murray's place in the Nuggets, it would work seamlessly. Maxey's a great cutter. He moves quick. He's a willing passer. He can shoot off of movement. He can score at the rim. High IQ player. He can pass a little bit. Granted, he's not a primary playmaker. But with Embiid, you're saying that there's limitations there given Embiid's style that doesn't allow Maxey to flourish at the level that you perhaps see in a different situation. Is that what you're saying with that, with the limitations with Embiid?
Not even necessarily, because I don't think Embiid has those limitations. I think he actually has more to his game, but he loves playing the note that is so comfortable for him. So when you get into an 82-game season and he plays 60 of those games, 60 of those games are going to follow the same script. You're giving the ball to him. You're giving the ball to him. Everybody flatten out. You're a floor spacer. What I'm saying is you have to develop, like if I was Joel Embiid, this is easy for me to say because I'm not him, but if I was him, I would look at this year and I'd say, I want Tyrese Maxey to be player of the week 1 week while I'm healthy. That's going to be my goal. I want him to be player of the week because that means I'm going to spend all this time just working on 5 different things we do in pick and roll and triple handoffs that really get him going. So when we get to the playoffs and they're overloading on me, that's what I go to. Okay, I'm going to this because now the defense is compromised. I'm working on 3-man game options like, okay, we have Cody Martin or Kelly Oubre, not necessarily a big threat, or Caleb Martin, sorry, not necessarily a big threat. But what do I do with the 3 of them to create switches and to create different things that set the table? You work on those types of things over the course of the year, and now you have a whole arsenal of options. And no matter what the defense throws at you, collectively as a team, you have the information and confidence to go to the playbook, given the coverage that they're giving you. But it's very easy to win 5 games in a row in November, in October, when you just mash the Embiid button. Oh, he went for 45 against, that's awesome. You beat the Nets, he had 45. Did you learn anything that's going to serve you when you play the 76 or when you play the Celtics in April or May? And if the answer is no, what are we doing?
Maybe this will be the year we see it. Maybe it will be because Embiid has trended up last year, first year under Nick Nurse. We did see a bit more DHOs from him, averaged a career high in assists last season. He was operating more as kind of that playmaking hub. Granted, it's not maybe to the levels that you might hope for, but maybe that's one step towards that. Maybe this year when he's not playing back-to-backs, when they need to save him a bit more, now that they have Paul George, get Maxey back in a few weeks from his hamstring issue, better supporting casts on paper at least. Maybe this is the year we see that from Embiid. If we do see that from Philly this year, if we do see these layers to Embiid's game, we're talking about a team right now that's only 2 of 7. They have not been good so far, but 2 of 7 in the East means you're only 3 back from the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. If we do see some of these things from Joel Embiid, how would it change the way in which you envision Philly's upside come postseason time?
To me, they could win a championship. They're behind the 8 ball because of the start, and I'm a big believer in when you have to sprint through the finish line, it's really hard. Denver had a huge rest at the end of the year in 2023. Boston had a huge rest at the end of the year in 2024. They were rested and fresh in the playoffs. Can Philly win enough games to be in position? Even now, if they win at a 60-win pace, are you getting up to 52 wins because you're already so far back? So that part's tough. But yes, I am saying that they have the talent. Paul George is a phenomenal player. He has his flaws, but he's a phenomenal player that puts you in a real pickle. We know Embiid puts everybody in a pickle. Nobody can guard him. And then Tyrese Maxey, same thing. When he's at his best, he puts you in a pickle. You have 3 real weapons that if you're molding those weapons together, so they're not 3 individual things, but they collectively make up all these different actions, they should be impossible to guard. And right now, the Celtics are impossible to guard. The Thunder, when they were healthy, are impossible to guard. Denver's kind of impossible to guard. It's early, but they'll probably end up there. Philly in the playoffs, they might not be as impossible to guard, even though they should be. They just have to work towards having that many layers to their offense. But I agree with you. Nick Nurse did make a progress in that direction. I just think it was one step when last year I kind of expected them to take 5 steps forward, but maybe it was building a foundation that will really pay off this year.
You also forgot their 4th star, Yahoo! Gershon Yabusele, the dancing
kind
bear. He's been really good. He has been. I mean, good for him. Following up on his success with the French national team, Yabusele has been really good for Philly. He's probably been he has been their best role player because a lot of their guys have been very inconsistent, but Yabu bringing size on defense, shooting over 40% from 3. Good for him. Hasn't been in the NBA since the 2018-19 season when he was with the Celtics. Pretty good to see him out there playing at a really high level.